What's up, Beer League hockey fans and fellow dumpers? Welcome to another Dump and Skate podcast, where we talk and you just sit and listen. And if you don't listen, I know someone that'll just call and tell you what we're talking about. On the podcast scheduler, broken, old, and decrepit bender, the ball buster, Jeremy. The only thing worse than going to a steakhouse with no Wagyu is my skating. With me, as always, the man that makes this podcast possible, the only producer that doesn't do any editing, the very hard-working family man, Jeremy. If you have 8 hours to spare, be sure to have Holland tell you the story of how he found out what vato means in Spanish. Holland. I didn't flub it.
No flubs. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all shapes, sizes, and flavors? Welcome in again to your favorite podcast.
Oh, you flubber.
It's been a long weekend. Your favorite podcast, the Dump and Skate podcast. We're glad to have you in. Yes. So again, the backstory behind why I was telling you a story about Vato and what it meant was all tied to I was driving through a neighborhood. I had a Hispanic lady and a guy that were doing some painting for me. So I'm a general, if you don't know, here we go. 8-hour story. Yep. I'm a general contractor. And so that's what I do for a living. And I had a paint crew come in. They were doing some work at a house in our neighborhood, just some side work for me. And they, what are you doing with your phone?
Well, I have my stopwatch going.
Perfect. And so I needed to get them some money. They were mostly finished with everything. So I needed to get them partial payment for everything. And the lady gave me an address, and the address got me to a place. It was a like trailer park neighborhood, I guess is exactly what it was. And so there were only a couple of street names, and she was like, it's lot E and like the number 7 or something. And so I was on the phone with you because I was like, hey, I'm headed here and I'm headed back to the house. And I do some things. So we were just chatting, and legit, like I drove in. How long was I driving around through that neighborhood? And I was on the phone with you. At least 30 minutes.
8 hours.
8 hours. I got lost in there, and she ended up calling me. And sure enough, I was like, yeah. She was like, you lost? And I was like, yeah, I can't find the lot E's. It was like the trailers had big numbers and letters sprayed. Like when I drove in, it was like A, number 2. And I was like, oh my gosh. All right. And I never could find the E's. It was ridiculous. I had to take a side road. And so, yeah, that's how, I don't even know why Vato came up, but that's what that was about. That was, oh my gosh. Yeah. A day in the life of Jeremy Holland. It was and that's not even fair. That was a super stressful day. You're messing with me about, it's good now, but that was an awful stressful day right up until about 1 o'clock. So thanks for bringing that back up, jerk.
Thanks for making me listen to the story.
Who is it again? That was a 2-minute story, stopwatch man. Who is it that you said if you don't listen that someone will call you and tell you all about it? What are you talking about?
All right.
We have listeners. We have avid listeners that tell other people when we mention them on the podcast.
Well, I don't want to say anything because I'm afraid someone's going to call and say that they're going to snitch on me. Granny. You little bitch.
What did Granny do? Come again? I didn't hear that.
Said Granny, you little bitch.
Oh, gosh.
Does that refresh your memory? You know what I'm talking about now?
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Just talking about people and their carb diet and about their skating. And next thing I know, I get a text.
Speaking of carb diet.
Talking about my dick on your podcast. What part are you listening at? What part are you at? I'm not. Granny called me. Didn't text me. He called me to say that you guys are talking about my dick.
So when good grief.
This is going to be a lot different. This is going to be a lot different than the last podcast. I was very stifled and filtered last podcast, but I have a lot to talk about.
Painkillers now or something?
I have a lot to. I have a lot to say now. But I couldn't say
Holy
that in the
crap.
last podcast.
No, it was a
Speaking of carb
kid's.
diet, we want to talk about what I had for breakfast. Is that what we're getting at?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of carb loading diets, when I picked up my kid from lunch today and you were on the phone with me describing to me everything you ate and how that had gone, and my kid looks me dead in the face and goes, "What is it, like bulking season for him or something?"
It's just
I
my
almost
normal
fell out of
everyday
the
me.
truck.
It's my. I thought he was coming at me, fat shaming me.
I mean,
He was like, "No, he's not."
no, he was.
But it wasn't a fat shame because it all went through me. Like it's like I didn't even eat. Hence why I have the cleanest butthole my doctor's seen.
I don't want to talk about buttholes anymore. I've heard. I'm not,
Oh,
let's
if you
get away.
do, if you don't want to, I got a great audition video. Not of me, not of me, but
Good.
all right.
Good.
You
I'm
just
good.
how many
Holy
times did you watch
smokes.
it?
None.
You watched it enough to tell me you hate me.
I did. I did because it wasn't the thumbnail was not of the worst parts. The thumbnail was just a picture of a person, and I was like, "Oh, I know this person. I played," and I said, "Oh my gosh!" So thanks for putting that into my
Berlin, seriously, how many times did you watch it?
issue. Well,
You never, you
I
never
love
answered the question.
Berlin's responses were, "Oh, sorry, I was watching the wrong video on repeat." No, I went and watched it several times too.
Yeah, Berlin, seriously, how many times? And then Grant's message: "This is the most disturbing but yet funniest video."
It is- I just don't have to know. Like, you got a lot of free time. Like,
I didn't go to the JIM today.
way more free. This was your
skipped
workout.
I skipped
This
the
was your
gym.
workout for
Well,
the day.
here I'm going to tell you exactly what I told Rossi today. Rossi called me up. He needed me to design a logo, and I said, "Yeah, if people like, I have a playlist just set for just this tournament in my on my Spotify." We've talked about it in the podcast, and I was just listening to it. And sometimes I add songs. And I told Ross, I go, man, if people only knew what I was listening to when I work out sometimes, like this is just for the group. This is just for the group. And if you're a wrestling fan from the Attitude Era, Billy Gunn's song popped up, and I'm like, oh, perfect. This is gonna be. And I said, I'm gonna make a video, and that's what I did.
Yeah, you did.
Not of me. Not of me. Not of me. Let's
Well,
get that clear.
There weren't enough faces in the videos, so one of them could have been you. We never know.
All right, I got.
I'm just
Man.
saying, you don't know.
All right.
You don't know. And I'll never say what the video's about because
Again, it's
I didn't watch
kinda-
the whole thing. So
well, I
don't
can
really
send it
know
to
what
Grenny.
was.
I'll send it to Grenny. He can just call and tell everybody what's about.
Yeah. We're perfect. Hey, at least Granny's listening and sharing with other people.
I appreciate
maybe we
it.
should just like run through the laundry list of talking with about people, and then Granny will share the podcast, and then we'll widen our viewership and listening
Well, that's the
audience
thing. Maybe
just by
it's-
virtue of Granny making phone calls and sending text messages.
Maybe Asara was going to listen to it, but he's like, well, now that I know that you're talking about, taking clappers at my wee wee, I don't need to listen. I don't need to listen. And then, so we just lost a listen on that podcast, and we lost a view. So, Granny, wait a week. Wait like 2 weeks to call. All right. So then they can
Or
get
if
caught
you're
up.
going to alert somebody, be like, hey, you really got to listen to the podcast. Just listen to it for the first 5 minutes and you'll hear it. It's hilarious. You're going to love it. It's the best thing ever.
Or no, better yet, Granny. I mean, I know you listen. Do a screenshot, put it on your Facebook page, and say, "Hey, this is great," and then tag a sorrow, and then we'll get more likes, views, and then more people, and then tag Dump and Skate in it. Like, help us, help you. We put a big shout out for you in that podcast of how you did such a great job in the draft and with roller hockey. I take it all back because you snitched. I take it all back. Bitches get stitches.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Oh man, thanks for listening, guys. It's been a lot of fun. If you haven't liked and subscribed and you want more of this phenomenal content, make sure you like and subscribe the Dump and Skate podcast on all of your listening platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Go to all of them, follow us, give us a like. Excuse me.
Same time.
And TikTok, we have a TikTok coming.
Do we?
have
I don't
a
know if I can do
TikTok
that.
coming soon. We're going to just be all over all your socials. We're going to force Abdu to do a Snapchat so you can follow us that way. It's
No.
probably going to be largely inappropriate Snapchats, which is why I'm not even going to touch it. I'm just going to pretend like I don't even it exists. I'm just kidding about the Snapchat. But yeah, no, we will. It sounds like we do have a TikTok
We're in the
coming
midst
soon.
of doing a TikTok.
And we're going to
Nerds.
get a Twitter, and we'll actually post about news and politics and things. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do any of that. That's ridiculous. Why on earth would we
Oh,
ever
I
do
know a
that?
great Twitter handle that I can tag in our Twitter if we want to do it.
It was a joke. I'm kidding.
Oh no, now we're doing it.
No. So also, don't forget, we love supporting the guys that support us and that have done a good job for us in the past. You heard Abdu talk about making a logo for Pete Rossi and the guys at GSU. And so Chicagoland Print, great company, great group of guys and girls out there. Whether it's business cards, flyers, brochures, whatever you need to promote your businesses, let these professionals at Chicagoland Print help you get that material and get it out there. Chicagoland Print does their best to meet everyone's needs. If you're looking for affordable, high quality, and very competitively priced printing services, give them a shout. If you've got your own design, if you need them to design one, they can do that for you as well. You can find them at chicagolandprint.com, or you can call them at 630-233-7276. They do a phenomenal job. Look them up, let them hook you up, and tell them when you talk to them that the boys, Jeremy Abdu and Jeremy Holland from Dump and Skate, sent you their way. So, all right, buddy. Today we're getting into some beer league etiquette. There is like an elephant stomping above my head. I really hope that's not coming through the podcast microphone because it's super
I didn't hear it.
duper loud. It's insanely loud. Like it sounds like there's a wrestling match upstairs.
Do you want to let everyone know that signups are coming up in a couple of weeks for the men's league down here? Finally.
I was going to, but you just did. So yeah,
Well, you're talking about
had a
an elephant.
conversation. I know. You're good. This is a phenomenal segue. I'm not saying anything bad. That was great, keeping us on track. Abdu, the organized one tonight. Yeah, if after the 7-minute Grinny rant, Abdu's the organized one. We local league signups are coming, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all shapes, sizes, and flavors. We've got talked with Dwight earlier this week. Have been talking with Andy a little bit too about structure of the league and things like that. So the format looks like 40 plus A, B, and C leagues this year. Very excited about that. The B league is going to be new. C league is going to be more of a beginners and developmental league with a few guys that are a little more talented filtered down in there to just kind of help progress that thing along. But we're also going to have opportunities for more experienced players to work those benches, help those guys out, help teach. And so lots of opportunities for you to be involved with kids hockey, with adult hockey, with anything out there. We need referees, except for you, Spikes. Don't referee. It's not going to work very well. I don't feel like.
Oh no, he's good. I'd trust him to referee a
He
GSU.
fell cleaning the ice.
I would trust him.
He fell cleaning the ice.
I would
at a
trust
Ghost
him for a
Pirates game.
college hockey game for sure. I would trust
Yeah.
him if I was a college hockey
to clean the
player.
ice. To clean the ice.
I would no, just to wipe the snow off my blades is what I would trust him to do.
Fair enough. With a little paintbrush.
Hey,
sweeping
guy.
it off.
I
Don't
just call him guy.
don't wanna-
Hey, guy.
Don't want to cut your fingers, my man. Just use the paintbrush to get it cleaned. So yeah, so we've got signups coming up. Should be up by the end of this month. We've been sending out some emails and text messages through captains chats and things like that. So we've been getting a lot of good responses back from the majority of our captains. A little bit of shuffling going on. Some captains stepping down. And things like that, and some captains stepping up. So that's been really, really good to see. But definitely have a lot of stuff moving, shaking, happening. My expectation is that the league grows again this year. It has grown every single season. I'm trying to remember back the very first year we played. It grew throughout the year. We eventually had to kind of shut it down, and then the next season everything got bigger because we introduced the 40 plus. And then halfway through the year last year, so our second season last year, we grew again by 2 whole teams.
2 whole teams.
In the C League. And so I'm fully expecting that we have even more. I've had multiple conversations with people during the off season that have not played before in this area and are very excited about getting signed up and coming and playing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get back on the ice. I'm excited about this weekend. We're going to be traveling up to Atlanta and playing in what we think is going to be an organized game. We don't know. None of us
Yeah,
have followed up with Rob.
I will be really upset if we go up there and it's
And it's
just
a
us.
scrimmage.
It's just us. Like,
It might be a worse. It might be a worse drunk fest than what Nashville was. To be perfectly honest with you, if that's all it is, it might be pretty rough. What is that face for? You're thinking of the prospect of it not being a good weekend.
yeah, I think it's going to be a good.
It's Sarah's birthday weekend, so it's going to be a good weekend regardless.
Well, if it's anything like what we did the 45 minutes before this podcast, it's going to be great.
Wasn't 45 minutes. It was about 10.
On dog years, it was 45.
And, well, congratulations. Neither of us are dogs. I know time moves faster when you're walking behind a walker because there's a lot less time in front of you, but just say. You want to chat about that really quick? I think it's valid. So Abdu got pineapple. Are you pineappling me or no?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, it's not.
So
I
I'll
was going to pineapple, but now people are going to be wondering. And
I'll share it because because you talk, and this is serious. I know we're cutting up. We've been joking around a lot. We've got a lot of that kind of pent up because of the last one. So for those of you that know anything about Abdu's backstory, and I'm talking about this because Abdu doesn't want to make this anything about him, but I want to share it because it's important because you guys that follow us know us personally. And so I told him, I said, hey, I'll bring it up and I'll talk about it because it's important to me because we're friends and all. And so anyways, if you know Abdu's background, you know that he's been in a couple of different accidents, a motorcycle accident that he was lucky to be able to survive and recover from, but busted him up pretty bad, including the right hip, right?
right hip.
Yeah, including the right hip pretty tremendously. And then had another spill several years later when he got back on the ice that was basically slew-footed and had some medical complications as a result of that. So medically, it's hard for you to be able to play, but you've been able to kind of basically tough through it and grit through it to this point.
For the love of the game. For the love of the game. Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, or as my wife might say, like, you guys are all idiots, which is probably partially true too.
Facts.
100%. So, but you went to the doctor this past week just to, you've been experiencing some pain in that hip. It's been a little worse here lately, been harder to sleep. And so went to the doctor. Doctor said, hey, you're probably a candidate for a hip replacement. Went to an ortho specialist. Ortho specialist said, hey, when do you want to schedule your hip replacement? To which you said, hey, slow your roll, buddy. We're not there yet. So, but the ortho basically looked and said the hip is in pretty bad shape. I think the exact words were, you look like a 92-year-old's hip that's already had 2 hip replacements. So I don't know what that says about the longevity of hip replacements. If you look like you've already had 2, that's not a good sign. So, but it's pretty uncomfortable. You're going to try to, you're going to skate this weekend, obviously with us, see how it goes. And then you've got some, alternative methods you're going to give a shot before we go the surgery route and just kind of see how those go. So fingers crossed. So if you guys are avid listeners, if you know anybody in the ortho field, I know Abdu and I have been talking a lot about what it looks like after hip replacement, if he's able to skate, if he is, what he's able to do. There's been some concern about, that one made the podcast. If there's, if you're going to be able to play afterwards, the kind of resounding answer has been it's going to be really difficult because the risk is pretty high. And so if anybody knows anything, you and I have been somewhat seriously, but also somewhat jokingly talking about just going on full-blown amputation, because at least then if it falls off, it's no big deal. You just put it back on and keep rolling.
Like a Lego leg.
Lego man. And so, if you guys know anybody in that field and can kind of point, give us that info and all. I know Abdu would appreciate it, and I definitely would too.
100%, please.
We're at this point, Abdu's just kind of looking for any and all opinions, so he can make an educated decision on what he does from there. So, I'm talking about it, so he doesn't have to. We know you guys listen to us because you like listening. You like us. You probably know us personally. We usually cut up, except for you, Granny. You probably don't like us at all, but that's okay. We still like you. We just won't say any more nice things about you. We don't like you, Asaro, though, if you're listening. So, send us. I'm just kidding, Asaro. You're really nice. Everybody loves you. Nobody
Look,
talks
Asaro,
about you
I
behind
love
your
you
back.
because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have warm showers that I don't
100%.
shower in.
That Abdu doesn't shower in. That apparently you don't shower in either, Asaro. So whatever that's about. Anyways, So, if you guys do have any contacts or anything like that, just shoot that over. Let Abdu kind of run them down. We'd really, really appreciate that. You can send them to any of our social media stuff. Just make comments, private messages, whatever. So, but yeah, we would greatly appreciate that. So, done. I got you, buddy.
I appreciate it. I
No
appreciate
problem.
it. I'm not
All right,
ready to
let's
give
get
up.
into the.
I'm not ready to give up hockey
I know,
yet.
man.
That's the
I know.
that's
I
the
told
issue.
you what I would do. Just full send it. just numb that puppy up and roll. That's what I'll do probably for quite
Blast
a while until I
blast
can't.
peptides.
Blast peptides. Our good friend Rob Cooch has given his non-doctor advice, which thank you, Rob, for your non-doctor advice. We really appreciate that.
Let's blast
Well,
peptides. I got
yeah,
a needle
we'll give
about the
you.
size of a stretched limo. It's
If
about
I
the
inject,
it's about the
let me
same.
inject this cocktail into you, and
It's about,
it should last you a few days. You'll be good to go.
the needle's about the size of a fire hydrant thickness.
Don't worry, it only hurt for a second. It'll feel like a slight pinch.
Just like in the movie Youngblood. I've only had about 8 drinks before I'm ready to stitch you up. Let's go right ahead.
Oh man! All right, so we want to talk tonight a little bit about some hockey, some beer league hockey etiquette, right? You and I were talking off camera, offline about roster management. I guess was kind of what we were talking about, but it really was tied to a couple different things about like whether you build a an actual lineup before you play.
Well, I'll just tell you how this whole
Yeah,
conversation started. I
get
don't
it.
even know what made me think about this, but
I don't know either.
we were just thinking about stuff to talk about for a podcast. I was thinking about the championship game, and something made me think about when we were talking about during the like when the championship game was going on for your league because you played after us. We were talking about how it went into overtime and how it went into a shootout. And Brendan Robertson said, "Hey, look, if it goes into an overtime for a championship game, my bench gets really thin. Like I'm just, and it was what we did a 3-on-3 for a champion. Was it overtime? Was it 3-on-3
I
or 4
think
on
it
4?
was 3-on-3.
Yeah, for 5 minutes, and I asked, yes,
I commented to you after the game that I thought the lines that were built were a little squirrely looking for your team,
yeah,
and I was honestly a bit shocked that you guys made it through the 5 minute overtime.
that's what I. Well, it wasn't. So during
You
the
weren't
championship,
you weren't building the lines. You weren't
I
putting
was
them
not.
out.
I said this is what it should be. Our first line went out there. Second line was nothing. It looked like what happened after I ate my breakfast today. It was just a mess. It was all over the place, and it was not planned. And during the game,
So second line looked like water poop.
it just
That's good. I
it looked
appreciate
like
that definition.
shark chum. So
Wait,
even
what?
even just
That's a slightly different color. Just,
well, it wasn't
just
red.
saying. Okay, I'm just saying. Got to be more
Again,
specific.
again, the doctor said I have a clean butthole. I'm good.
Maybe that's
So
why.
so anyways, I even said, "Hey, look," and the Griffins did it right. Like the
Shout out
Griffin,
Andy.
we played the Griffins in the championship, and they were just playing the same two lines. Their top at the time 6, their top
Correct.
6, and
Correct.
we played our top
Whole
3.
roster.
The first,
Whole
yes,
roster.
and Chris even
random.
said they're playing like the same 2 people, and we got
Random.
yeah.
Randoms.
Thank you.
You just got
Thank you.
random guy number
Yes,
7 going out
yes,
the door.
yes.
Like, why are you
Yep.
going back out there? Their number 1s
Yep.
are back out there. What are you doing? All right. So the conversation then is in the playoffs, because that's specifically what you're doing. It wasn't even playoffs. Yours was championship game.
Right, and I
And
said,
so, but in the playoffs or championship, where it's win or go home.
Mm-hmm.
What are you shortening the bench? Are you, hey,
Right.
this is beer league. Let's
How
have
do
a
you
great
go
time.
about it?
Everybody plays.
because everyone pays to play, and I get that. Regular season, everyone pays to play. Some people, some people deny this, but they say, "Oh, it's beer league. I don't care." But some of those people that say, "Oh, it's beer league. It's not a big deal," are also very competitive and want the W. So, what do we do? How do you do a roster? How do you do a lineup? Everyone's there to play. Are we just there to have fun? And how do you build a lineup? So that's how this whole conversation started.
for sure.
for the topic. So, what
So
do you
what's
think?
your thought on it? You
All
tell me
right.
your thought, because
Okay.
I said I thought it was random. I thought your lineup looked really, really random watching y'all's game.
And again, it's amazing how we didn't lose
I
in
very
overtime.
shocked. Very
Yes,
shocked.
yes, and I was screaming. Imagine that Abdul talk shit and scream and yells on the bench. But
It's very rare. It's a very rare occurrence. It happens
so
once every
regular
7 years.
season, regular season.
No,
Okay,
we're talking playoffs. Stop changing the
playoffs.
topic.
Okay,
Playoffs.
fine, playoffs.
Do you shorten the bench when the season's on the line in a playoff in a beer league?
Yes, I think so because
Is it league
there's
dependent?
it depends on who you're playing against.
Is it league dependent? No, well, okay. So here's the deal. The only time we're short, I'm not saying like that whole game. You guys, no one was shortening their bench.
Correct, but right.
It was only when it came to nut cutting time that it's like, hey, the bench has got to get shorter. Again, is what you're implying, correct?
Yeah.
Again, the game got down to the wire. I think it was obviously a tie game. I think didn't you guys tie it up late?
I think so. I think so.
I can't remember now either. We'll have to
I
go
can't
back and
remember
watch
either.
we'll have to go back and watch the live barn that doesn't exist. And so you get into overtime, and again, now it really is like sudden death. Every shift counts.
You
If they're
shorten the
one-
bench.
That's right.
In a championship game.
In a 3-on-3 situation, if their ones are out there, you better have your ones out there with them. And if their twos are out there, you better have your twos
We
out
had
there with them.
we had our 12s and 13s
And,
out there.
and if they're rotating 1-2, 1-2, then you dang sure better be rotating
Especially
1-2,
in 3 on
1-2.
3. 3 on
Not
3 is
1, 2, 3,
right.
7, 12. Yeah, no, that's bad.
3 on 3 is a lot like basketball. You play
Way-
man to man.
Way too much open
right.
ice
Yes.
for mistakes to happen. 100%.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
So
right.
I would agree with what your premise here, and I would say that yes, that you at the level you guys were playing at, what do you equate it to? It's not your C league. Is it your C1 league? What you guys were playing in was basically a C1 back in Chicago.
Oh no. This would be
No?
like a D league.
Okay.
So
So I didn't know. So hang on now. So tell me the levels again. C is the bottom of the C's.
So they have
And
a
is it
C only.
C1?
It's a C only, a C1, a C2, then
Okay,
B.
so C2 is the top level then.
Yes.
There. Okay.
Yes. And then
Okay. Because I remember talking with Berlin, and Berlin said that all of our guys put together that we've traveled with, he was like,
be a
it'd be
C1.
basically like a C2. Oh, I thought you said
C1, C2. No, we play in a C. I'm sorry. You're right. It would be a C2 for sure. It would be a C2.
With basically 3-4 guys that would easily jump up and play at a higher level than that.
With like Marola's level. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny's, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Same
All
with
right.
James Wood,
So-
like the James level too.
Correct. All right. So what we're saying is what you guys are playing, which is our C League, it's the equivalent of essentially the C League back home for you guys, or would it be more like a low
D.
level
It would
step
be a
down
little.
below that?
It would be like a.
Even in the championship game where you were playing at? Because those are two pretty good teams.
Yeah, it would be okay. So the Zeros and the Griffins team would be an equivalent to a C only league.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. All right, so
Yes.
just giving some context for folks that are outside of the Savannah listening area for the skill level, right? So this is essentially a C only team back home. It's what we've called our C League, which is really kind of a mixture of what's going to end up being what you guys would call like a C1 and C2 league. I mean, sorry, a C1 and a C league, and it's what we're going to end up calling a C and a B league. And so some of the terminology here is a little different. But all right, so that's the makeup of the rosters. Basically, you're in a playoff game. You're actually in the championship game. And so what you're saying is, hey, we shorten the benches. We definitely shorten the benches when it goes to 3-on-3. And if it's a tight game, if we're down by 1 or whatever, it's getting late, we shorten the benches then, even at that. Correct?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of
So-
people on the bench agreed with that play.
Yes. Yes.
But then there are some people
So you got guys on the bench that are mad about that?
they're mad, or you got some people that think they're a lot better than what they are, and they think they can be the hero and make the difference, and they go out there and then they're the zero.
Are you referring to your own team or are you referring to other team?
In this conversation, yes. But specifically in this
yes or
conference,
no. It was
in
either
this,
or, idiot.
kind of both.
Okay.
It did happen in the championship in the 3-on-3, and then that's when everything just went all haywire, and then-
Chaotic, yeah,
yes,
where randoms were on the ice. Okay.
yes, and
All right, so you had guys that did not had a lack of awareness of their own skill level.
yeah, and that happens. I
Coach,
get it.
Coach should have taken care of that pretty quick. Where
Coach was calling
at?
anybody out. He's like, "You go ahead and go out there. You go ahead and out there."
Oh, no.
In between
So Coach-
periods, in
Coach
between
really
break,
needs to go back to coaching like sprites hockey.
Coach needs to start, doing the lineup now for Game 7 of next year. 'Cause, we get those lineups like immediately after this game that we played.
So
but-
we got to run Coach through a refresher course, send him back to Pee Wee Rec
Yes.
League, get him
Yes.
to run a Pee Wee Rec League team sufficiently first
to
before
be
he moves
clear-
back onto the bench. Got it.
Chris and me and someone else, I can't remember who it was because it was so long ago. We said, here's the lines. First line, second line. We're just going to run with that. Second line was nothing like that. Again, it was like breakfast. So it was just a mess. And then,
Water poo. Got it.
yeah, it was a mess. And then somehow
So you had 6 players that could have rotated 3 for 3.
that was the plan. That
over
was the
and over
plan.
and over. Yeah.
That was our original plan. And then, like I said, we had 12s and 13s out there.
So I would agree with your statement that if it's in the playoffs and things like that, and especially if you're in the championship game, yeah, 100% you shorten your bench. I think that's the right play. Again, I'm playing in an AV league that probably looks like a combination of your C2 and
Yes.
Johnny's Ice House. And so we would shorten the bench to play to win. I mean, a lot of our guys at our level are relatively, I say a lot, there's probably a handful of guys. I have guys on my team that really want to win. We have a pretty good team. We've I think finished at least second in everything we won this past year. I know it has a big asterisk next to it, Pete and Andy. I don't need you to remind me of that. It's not my fault your goalie lost his temper. I just, look, tell him to calm down. But at our level, there are guys kind of sprinkled on every team that really, really want to win, that are super competitive.
And I
And
understand
so-
that too.
And I do
I'm
too.
like that
Again,
too. I'm like
good.
that.
I don't want to get like absolutely railroaded here, but I don't mind. It's not the end of the world for me if we lose. I hate losing in an ugly way. I'd rather play well and lose just because we kind of get beat. But we've lost a couple games where we've just gotten like steamrolled, and that's not fun either. But all that to say, like, we have guys that are competitive, and I think we have way more guys at our level that have played, higher level junior, collegiate, things like that.
And they still have that
versus-
competitive edge.
That's right. And so they've had that competitive itch before. It kind of comes back when you get to play. And again, the majority of the guys are good, easy to play with. But to the point what we're talking about, yes, I would say that we would shorten benches and things like that. More than likely if we had to. And so I agree with that. What about if we dropped all the way down to so our new going into this next season, we're going to end up having essentially what you're describing as like a D league. And so it's going to be called for us as a C league. And so it's going to be a developmental league, a beginners league. But there's going to be some percentage of players that are in that league that have played before, but just do not get drafted up into the B league, which is again kind of like you guys. It's going to be some kind of combination of like a C1, C2 league.
Right.
And so does that level, we get into a playoff game, are we shortening benches there and telling the developmental guys that are really, really new, like, hey, do you want to win this thing or not? Sit on the bench.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know
I
either.
don't know how to
but
handle
see,
that. If
no.
I'm coaching the bench, I'm probably looking at the guys and saying, boys, it's your call, it's your team. Do you want to win this thing? If we do, we have to shorten the benches and run the lines a certain way. If we're okay with just saying, like, hey, we had a really good season, it was a lot of fun, we'll run the lines and let everybody go out there. And I would let the team make that call
Right.
based
Or
on
the-
how they
let-
wanted to
yeah.
finish their season. Yeah.
Good question. Good question. And I say it like that because Zach is new to the sport. His team had a great playoff run, and they just lost with a few seconds left, but they could have easily made it to the championship.
Yeah. And he's another one, too, that he'll play in that developmental league because he needs
Yes.
that, and he's admitted
Yeah.
that. And so he would
But
be one that would probably be good to ask and say, "Hey, what do you do?" I think Zach
exactly.
is a competitive. I think Zach is a competitive guy. I'd probably say, "Hey, shorten the bench, put the best guys out there."
Yep.
The question I would ask then is say, "Well, is that you?
Right. And
Where do
you know
you
what?
fit on this?"
If someone says, Abdu, you suck, sit, I'm fine with that. You
You've
know,
benched yourself.
I,
We
I've,
played when we played in Nashville. You sat because we were playing in a game that you could kind of tell there were two or three guys that were frustrated. You could tell from their body
on our
language, the way they were
bench.
playing, they
Yes.
were frustrated on our bench with the way we were playing and the outcome of the game we were in. We weren't getting our stuff pushed in or anything, but we were just not playing up to what we thought we could. And you said, "Hey, I'll sit myself. I'll let you guys rotate, without me, and maybe that'll kind of get us into the win column
Again,
and
I
all."
was not
So,
making a difference, and I knew how much, just based
and
off
that
the
was
rest of
your
the team.
own,
No one said, Abdu,
yeah.
you suck, sit. It was, I could read the bench. Unlike when people can't read what's going on in the locker room and then they just make a dig at me, screw you. But I can read the room pretty well, and I just knew how bad these guys are. When I say these guys, our team wanted to get a win and how frustrated they're getting. And I was like, I'm not making a difference. I'm probably making it worse. I don't mind sitting. I don't mind making that executive decision. Corey was
Which
getting
I would
frustrated.
argue, you didn't need to make.
Didn't
You were
have to,
there.
no.
Yeah, again, I didn't think that was. I didn't realize you had done that. Again, we in that particular game, we were skating a little shorthanded till the very end on D, and so I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest,
But
and so I would have argued like, "Hey, no, don't do that. Continue to skate." But that's you making a decision based on you saying, "Hey,
I was trying to do what's
let's
best
try
for
to
the team.
win." You
Yes.
felt like you were the lower end of the ability
100%. Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and so you said, "I'll let the higher end guys continue to skate, and I'll sit and let them continue to go."
Yeah.
That's again player decision. I don't think there's any issues with that. We're at a tournament where we traveled to Nashville to do that sort of thing, so that's a whole nother ball of wax, in my opinion. Where we
No.
could have easily, as a team, decided. We could have easily, as a team, decided to shorten the bench even more than that and run 3D, even though
Yeah.
we had already actually done that the entire game. And we could have tightened up what we were doing as forwards a little bit, even, and just kind of rotated a couple of guys there. So, but we didn't because that's not why we were there. We were there to have a good time. So, all right.
Right.
So we
in a
say,
in a D league,
yes,
I think regular season, everyone paid to play, big deal. You no need to make cut, need to make benches. Playoff game, I think it's just, and I'm not saying this. I just think there's a competitive edge when it comes to playoffs. Because it was one and done, and a lot of
yes.
people aren't
Well, I
ready
mean,
to give.
it comes down to, does your team feel like we're here to attempt to win and advance, or are we just here to have a good time? So maybe it's a team by team decision.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe
But
it's a
everyone
team
has
by
to
team
agree to it.
decision.
Everyone has to agree to it. And then we say, look, if we're
you
here to win,
disagree,
and then this is what we're doing.
yes.
If we're not here to win, just have a good time, then no pointing fingers.
There's
Abdu.
no pulling fingers. Yeah. If if your team appointed captain or self appointed coach starts making calls, you can't get mad at him at that point. Yeah. So you actually bring up a different point in there, which is worth a discussion. So shortening the bench during regular season games. So I've actually been in our A League, which again is a kind of a essentially like a combination of a C2 team and a Johnny's Ice House team from back home with you guys, which is, I guess, a C2 and a B team. That's what our A, B, level groups look like. Our team has been in a position where we have inadvertently, and I say that on purpose because we had an oddball number of people. And so I had a guy that was getting actually shifted over, and he began to bark and complain about, "Hey, I paid the same amount of money as everybody else. I want the same playing time as everybody else." Now, this was a regular season game, and I agree with what he was getting
I
at.
understand that.
I completely agree with what he's saying. Like, hey,
Yeah.
let's skate. Now, he is, as far as abilities, on the bottom third of our guys. So he's definitely a third line guy. And part of what was going on is we were playing a team that only had two lines. So it was 1-2, 1-2 for them, and we were running 1-2-3.
Yep.
So our threes were all constantly kept getting stuck out there with their ones, and we were just getting speed bagged. And it was frustrating for us as defensemen. It was frustrating as the forwards. And what became apparent was there was a little bit of a lack of self-awareness from that forward grouping that like, hey, you're skating against their ones and you're getting absolutely trounced. You're helping us like none. And
Hmm.
it's not like all three of you aren't doing your job, but at least two of you really aren't. And so, yeah, I was of the mindset of, hey, we need to fix the lines so that the ones are always out with the ones, and then the twos and threes just need to rotate with one another so that the twos or the threes are always out there when the other team's number two line is out. I wasn't playing forward in that game. I couldn't just get off the ice and stop playing D and only run the bench and manage it. And our guys probably, the reality is our guys probably just didn't have enough maturity to be able to like
Right. You should have
do
called a
that sort
timeout
of
in the
thing.
first period.
Should have called a timeout before they dropped the puck and figured out everything and gone from there. No, we were again. I made that comment that, hey guys, look, I had several guys that were saying, hey, our threes are getting stuck with their ones. We've got to fix that. So I told our twos and threes, I said, you guys only need to rotate for one another. So the ones need to go, then the twos go, then the ones go again, and then the threes go. I get it. That means you're sitting a little bit longer, but you're not hanging with these guys.
Right.
It was essentially the equivalent of putting a mixture of C1 and C2 guys out there against a line full of B League players from Johnny's Ice House. I
Right.
mean, we were just getting
So
absolutely
that's the
railroaded.
debate. Do we just play for fun? Everyone paid to play? Do we just play to win?
In the league I'm in with the number of guys that are competitive,
Yeah, you play to win.
it got really really uncomfortable for
Yes,
me
I
as a
get it.
team captain
Yeah.
because I had way more guys that were getting really really pissed
Hmm.
with
I
how much of a
100%.
competitive disadvantage we were at every time those number threes went
I
out.
totally get it. But then you feel bad saying, "Hey, look, you aren't playing well. Sit."
Look, I wish that more guys were, and again, I still argue and would stump for this full blown. There was no need for you to sit while we were in Nashville. Just didn't
Okay.
think it was
Fair.
necessary. All right.
That's fair. But
But you at least have self awareness of, hey, I see the level of guys around me, and therefore I'm going to allow you guys to skate, kind of thing. I wish more of the guys that I had skated with had a similar
right.
self awareness that would have said, hey, it's probably best if I sit or I only skate against that specific line because that's the line that I can be competitive with. The other line I cannot
I
be.
would do the same thing if I played in your A league, unless you needed subs and you only had like 8 skaters. Then there's no need for me to sit. I'm just there for other people to get their win back for them to perform.
Correct.
But
And at that point, you're probably going to play this was the other thing. If you know you're at a competitive disadvantage because you're stepping on the ice with guys that are that much faster, better, whatever word you want to use, you're going to adjust the way in which you play your game. That was part of the problem I feel like we had in that game. Again, this has been a while, but that was part of the problem I feel like we had in that game too. Instead of adjusting and saying, hey, if we're stuck out here with their ones, we know exactly who their ones are. We need to play more of a defensive shell and stay home and just clear pucks, chip pucks out, survive our 30, 60 seconds, and get the next group on the ice. We didn't do that. Oh, well, I can skate up and I can carry the puck. No, my friend, you cannot. These guys you're skating with are 2 and 3 times faster than you.
and that's the other thing. You get some people. I'm just gonna say I've never played in your A league. I've only refed. But some people in the C league think they're better than what they are, and they try to go out there and keep up when they're actually, instead of having a 5-on-5, it's really a 5-on-4. There's a couple guys on the zeros, but here's the thing: on the Griffins, Lindsay runs that team so well. Like, no, you're sitting. She'll just flat out tell them you're sitting. They listen.
She has told us that she does have a couple that
Yeah,
she's
okay.
told them like, "Hey, don't
Yes.
go," and they get up and go anyways. And
Right, okay.
they all get supremely frustrated with those individuals. Like, "Hey, man,
For the
look,
most part, the
knock it
Griffins,
off."
for the most part, the Griffins team as a whole has an understanding, and I think that's why they're so successful in their seasons of making it.
It's helped that they have a probably as a general rule a slightly higher talent composite than everyone else. around.
Agreed.
That is
But
helpful.
then you get some people that used to play in the A League that got moved down, that think that they should still be in the A League, and they have to sign up for the A League and the C League.
Which is confusing because when you look at them, they look more like
Beginner.
A beginner. Yeah, that's
beginner.
it. Hmm. A
And
beginner
I'm
with a
not
lot
good.
of
Like,
expensive equipment,
I'm not saying I'm the
which is
best,
really
but
weird.
my passes can't get any better sometimes. And if those passes get flubbed to this at,
You may not be the best, but even in your crippled and elderly
I'm
state,
not the
you can
worst.
still skate better than this particular individual can,
Yes.
who, to my knowledge, has no crippling injuries or anything like that. So,
Right. And I'm
but
not, look,
okay,
I'm not the best. I'm
so
not the worst.
so you guys, I think the way your team structure worked, everybody rotated for everybody. Even in a losing effort, you guys typically built a lineup, if you want to call it that, built a lineup and then held to that lineup. Now, as the season wore on, it got later, and you guys kind of needed to land more things in the win column. I think there was some more strategic planning from you guys' point to say, hey, we really need to win these last two games. In order to do
Yeah.
that, this is how we need to plan, kind of thing. To me, that's getting into playoff hockey type thing. But if the whole season goes and you guys are, 2/3 of the way through the season and you're pretty well locked up with fourth, fifth, or sixth place, something like that, I don't think that the plan changes drastically for you guys. I'm speaking specifically for your team. Then you're
Yeah.
just rolling along like it is what it is. We're gonna continue to rotate the guys that are here. We're gonna rotate them as evenly as we can. Again, given the goofy numbers and all. So I think that's kind of most everybody's thought
Let's,
process in beer
yeah.
league is like, we're here, let's play what we have, let's try to get everybody even and fair playing time. And then as you get to like playoff seeding, if you could potentially get a number one seed, let's say, and get a bye, then maybe you adjust your roster, shorten your bench a little bit
Well, that's
in that
another good
last game or
question.
two. Well, to me, that carries into playoffs. And
Okay.
so I think if you're working with a pretty strong effort to again, if number one or number two seed or whatever, however your league works, if a high seed gets you a bye, and you're right there on the cusp of that, and you basically say we need one more win, do you shorten the bench for the one win? It's essentially a playoff game. So then yes, you would, right? I mean, that's how you're
Yeah.
treating it. That's how you're viewing it.
Yeah.
You're looking at seeding like that. Then you're
Yeah.
obviously
You
looking
play to win in the
at
playoffs.
playoffs. Yeah.
But here's my next question. And I think you're a big part of this with the zeros. How do you do a lineup? Do you just stack a line and then have lower lines, or do you kind of even them out? Like get your best players with
If you
someone that can
if
kind of hang for your first line, two guys that can kind of hang, and then have one of your better players, and then just have a complete Abdu breakfast line for your third line.
So
Like,
to me, the way I always built my A League teams was I tried to distribute as evenly as I could across my top two forward lines. I had a pair and a pair that I knew were good pairs,
mhm.
and then so I would just filter. Then the third guy on both of those lines was kind of, and again, as typical of any beer league, guys are always in and out and in and out, and so
Yep.
but those top four guys were relatively consistent guys. I knew that they were probably going to be there, and so I built a couple of pairs that I really liked. I felt like we could, kind of run with those guys, and that's what we kind of tried to plan around. Now I had four defensive guys. They were who they were. If a guy was missing, we a lot of times would just run with three. I didn't have a ton of defensive forwards that could drop back and play. I had one of my better forwards was willing to. He had the energy to do it, but he's not really a D guy. And if we had him dropping back, it was at the cost of us, not having a good forward. So, anyways, we did. I would build a lineup, but it was really built around that principle, trying to make our number one and number two lines as even as I possibly could. But that was also because of the talent composite I had. But at the end of the day, there still was kind of a one for a
Mhm.
reason and a two for a reason. And so basically, I filled out that third spot accordingly. So I would fill out the third spot for the ones to make that as close to a very, very good line as possible. And the twos, I would put the second best guy in that third slot that I had available.
So you'd never
And
have your first best player and your second best player together.
not typically. I actually split those two guys on purpose. So I have three really good forwards. Two of them play together, but they complement each other. I have a best player who is an age. He's a young guy. He's fast and he's got good hands. He is a number one guy. He was my number one pick last year in the draft. He is the number one guy that runs my number one line. And so I just build pieces around him because he can do a lot of things by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very, very clear number two guy that I bumped down to the second line, and I have a guy that's right next to him that hadn't played in a few years that will probably rival him, in my opinion, as a number two guy. So it's like a 2A, 2B. Those two guys play together because I found out really fast they play really well together. One of them is great at drawing attention to himself. The other one they both have really good vision, but one of them has exceptionally great vision. And it's just been a minute since he's played. So a lot of things like his edges and his hands and his touch and feel for the puck and stuff has all been kind of slowly coming back over the last season. So those two guys I always try to pair together as best I can. But and then I filter and everything from there. But I do not typically put like a number one, a number two, and number three players all stacked up on one line. I think that's a mistake. I think that weakens your second lines tremendously, and I think your number one line needs to be a clear number one line, but it doesn't need to be so dominant that when you roll out number two, that it looks like, oh man, this is a turd. Now, again, that is heavily dependent on what league you're in and what you're playing against. I played in an AB league. Right. That's really similar to your C2, B leagues back in Chicago, and number one lines all looked like number one lines. Number two lines looked like number two lines, and so you plan accordingly based on what other teams are throwing out. Mm-hmm. As you drop down in leagues, there's probably less and less of that, and so C league, everybody could fill out a number one line. But once you got to most everybody's number two line, it was a crapshoot. You might have two talented guys and three first-time guys out there. And so that's going to start to dissipate as we go into this season and have a B league where it's going to be more like a C1, C2. So there's going to probably be a strong one and a very, very good number two line. Yep. And so it should
that's going to be fun hockey. That's going to be fun.
It should start to sort itself out, in my opinion.
Since my very first men's league, I think I played at the age of 20. I've always done exactly what you said. Like you have a one player, and then you kind of build the first line around him. Then you have a strong second line, but not as strong as the first line. Again, depending on who you play against. And I started doing this with the Zeros. Sometimes I would like to get my second line out against their first line, so then our first line just blasts goals.
So you're going full blown NHL, like run the fours against the ones so that the ones can go against the twos and the twos against the threes, and you're trying to build a competitive advantage.
It depended on where we were at in the standings, who we were playing against, and did we really need this win? Did we just want to have fun? There was a couple games that we had that didn't really mean anything, so we're like, let's just pretend like we're going to go line up and then let just kind of screw with the other team a little bit. But like I said, since I can remember, there was never a stacked line. We never had a stacked line and then a weak line.
I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think stacked lines are a bad idea. So I think there's a lot of there can be a lot of nuance, but the general feel is that regular league play, we can kind of build lines as we feel like we need to without overloading them. But when you get into playoff time, or if it's a seeding thing, which is essentially playoff, then the potential to shorten the bench exists, and is probably an option that you and I would both say, hey, yeah, we probably need to look into that.
Basically, if you need to win, if this game is, hey, we need this game to win to make it to the playoffs,
tighten the bench.
Yes, make the bench smaller, get your better players out there. But
it's
everybody
not
has
the Stanley Cup, but for some of us, it is.
Yeah, and look, I really wanted to get that win in the championship. And I know Cooch did, and I wanted to win for Cooch. It was, and when you make it to the I don't know. I think it's just the competitiveness in the boys that you really want to win, regardless of what it
100%.
is.
100%. At the end of the day, you're playing a sport. We're not out there to just hug and kiss each other and be like, oh yeah, hey, congratulations, we played. Right. It was so much fun. You're on the ice because you want to win. There are certain times where the win or the loss feels better or stings less. And definitely when you get into playoff time, the wins feel a lot better and the losses sting a lot worse. And so I can completely understand with anybody saying, hey, we're going to tighten the bench. Now, running a bench regular season, game number 3, and you're shortening the bench because you're telling a guy he can't skate, you're an idiot. You probably need to stop playing hockey altogether. Like, go somewhere. Yeah. You need to go play in a league where you're the worst player and you're told to sit. for a little bit to understand what you're doing to people who are relatively new to the sport.
Agreed.
So, yep.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. That was a
Beautiful.
great one. Really quick, we're 7 away from getting 200 likes and subscribes on Facebook. So like our posts, share it, please, because we're not that
Share
far
with your
away.
friends. Yeah, we're seeing all of the likes and views and comments and things like that. Share it up. Let's get over that 200 number. Like I said, the TikToks are coming. The TikToks are coming. They're coming. So, guys, thanks for listening to us. We appreciate
Thank you.
appreciate all the love and support. We love you guys. We'll see you next time. We got a big guest coming up here, another repeat guest. I think you guys are gonna love. We're gonna leave it at that though. So we'll see you next time, boys and girls. Peace.
Bye.